How do I scroll down this shit?
Yep. It's quiet in here tonight.
Peaceful. I can actually hear the sound of my own voice.
I know.
I just said Bin Joe now.
If you've been me, there's no show. That's the problem.
That'll actually happen.
Huh?
Oh, it won't be me. It'll be a VPN too.
Oh, we'll get to that in a minute. Don't worry. But
It'll
yeah,
happen.
it's gonna be. You know what? Between the two of us tonight, we actually might be able to get through some actual content.
Yeah. It'd be more serious. All right.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I'll give no credit to this side ever. I'll give no respect to this side. John O'Barook, honorary Blues brother, Will Hayes.
Yes. Mr. Paul Sebastiani, welcome back to the show, mate.
This one game is a build-up of, a year's worth of work.
What did you think of his performance?
And I gave my opinion.
It's an opinion-based podcast. Fair enough. Welcome, everyone, to episode number 85 of the Almost Blues Brothers podcast, brought to you by Piota Health and Performance and powered by the Blue Broad Podcast Network and YouTube channel. Straight off the bat, there's only two of us, and you can see that it's just me and Jules tonight. First, Jules, before I ask how you're going, just one thing I need to say. My Wi-Fi will drop out. I've already explained to you prior to the show why, okay? This computer's connected to a global VPN. That VPN drops out every now and then. It affects my Wi-Fi and my connection. If I drop out, Jules is going to take full control of the show for 10 seconds. And if he doesn't, he's dropped next week. Secondly, before we get to Dan.
Looking forward to it.
Secondly, before we get to Dan, how are you, Jules?
I'm good. Obviously, another win makes it, the next 3-4 days after looking into the pod a lot easier, doesn't it?
Especially on a long weekend, Easter weekend. Now, there's a lot of people wondering, where is Dan? Dan's got better banter. We need Dan. Where's he at? I know. We know. He's the star of the show. He tells us every week. But unfortunately, Dan has some family matters to attend to this week. Our thoughts are with him and his family, and he will be back in action in due course. But until then, you got me and Jules, and maybe a guest next week if Dan can't make it. But we're still going to give you a good show. Just because Dan's not here doesn't mean there's no show. All right, this is just as good. Listen. First off,
how's your week?
Well, I was actually going to ask you.
I asked you how you were, and you're like, "Nah, he wanted to spill the beans in front of all the listeners." So I'm like, you know what, Joe? Here's your time. I'll give you your time now.
You know what? I appreciate you asking me how I'm going for once. That's nice. No, the long weekend was good. Easter weekend. I obviously the footy on Friday, but then had some, family Easter festivities over the weekend on Saturday and Sunday. Played golf yesterday in pouring rain, but that never stops you. And then today, so this is what I was getting to today. If I said, so it's olive season, okay? Making olives. If I asked you, how many kilos do you think I picked at Dad's house today? What's your guess?
From that one tree?
From the two trees that he's got.
From the two trees? Weren't you going to go get some from like Corey's trees and things like that as well? Just those two trees?
We did that in the afternoon, but just my batch, how many kilos? And leave a guess in the chat while we do this. How many kilos of olives do you think I picked today?
Is anyone close in the chat so far?
I'm not going to tell you.
I need you 13. GIS is gone. Some people are going 22, 24 kilograms.
Just give me your estimate. How hard is it?
I'm going to go 21. Nah,
17 and a half kilos. And then we went to my mate's house this afternoon and we picked another 21 there.
See, that's where I was getting the 21 from.
We've got olives for the next 4 years if you want olives.
To be fair, lately I've been smashing olives. You know what else I've been smashing? Anchovies. These Spanish anchovies.
Oh, okay. Get in touch with the culture.
You can't diss this. These things are inspirational. The flavor in these, and you know what? They come in a can, and you're like, I'm not really, I'm very skeptical about canned things. Yeah, baked beans. I know your dad loves baked beans, but not for me.
I've had not anchovy, like mackerel out of mackerel and sardines and sardines out of a can. Spanish.
I've had sardines, but mackerel,
that's good shit.
Nah, anchovies better. Go for them. Oh, you know what? I've got some here. I'll bring you some.
I didn't realize this was a contest between what was better out of 3 fish styles, but
Anyway.
all right, fair enough.
Anyway,
Yes, Ari, it is great and very ethnic of me to be making olives, and yes, Clarence, they will be Sicilian style olives, is what we're known for. So anyway, I'm excited. It's the first time I've done it in about 10 years, I reckon, and it was a good day. Enough about me. Jules, how are you, man? What did you get up to before we get into the footy?
not much, boys. To be honest, Joe, I'm too. Obviously speaking with Dan as well. Just been obviously not much, to be honest with you, relaxing. Obviously, the normal facilities as you do. We actually had our family gathering on the Friday before the actual game, before we headed out to obviously watch the Carlton North game. And then just casual one over the weekend. And then headed out today, went to go get a toasty. If anyone is in either the Richmond, Fitzroy, or South Melbourne area, this is a bit of a what do they call it these days? A bit of a plug for Hector's Deli. If you haven't, go to Hector's Deli. The toast.
Where's that? In all three
ridiculous.
suburbs? All three suburbs?
All three suburbs. So you got Fitzroy, one in Fitzroy, one in Richmond, one in South Melbourne. Now, they're not a sponsor of the show. I'm not a shareholder or anything like that. All right. I just went there today. It was inspirational. The flavor in these things was ridiculous.
If anyone that works at Hector's Alley or owns it is watching right now, you can hit us up at almostbluesbrothers@gmail.com if you want a sponsorship.
Or any cafe or restaurant or bar or anything like that. Please have a conversation with us.
And if anyone knows anyone at Hector's Deli, let them know to hit us up at almostbluesbrothers@gmail.com. While we're there, if you are a returning listener, welcome back. If you're new, welcome to the show. If you haven't already, you can follow us on Instagram at Almost Blues Brothers and on Twitter at Almost Blues Bros. And while you're here, leave a like and subscribe to the Blue Broad YouTube channel. It helps this community out immensely if you are subscribed. And this community is growing every single day this season, especially considering the start that we've had. Jules, as you can see, Jules is still a little bit sick. You'll see him mute himself and cough every now and then. We're in all sorts here, man, like we are every week. But we've got a show to do. We've got things to get through. And without any further ado,
let's get into it.
Round 4 review against North Melbourne. The Blues are still undefeated in the 2023 AFL season. I put a tweet out after the game pretty much straight away and said that
you were blind, weren't you?
Top of the tables never looked more shaky, which was correct at the time. But top 2, only 2 teams left are undefeated, us and St Kilda. If we can beat the Crows this week, it sets up a massive clash in 2 weeks' time at Marvel. Before we get into the nitty-gritty, Jules, what do you think of the day from a Good Friday appeal perspective and the marquee and whatnot? Do you think that's something that's going to that we'll continue to do going forward and obviously continue to benefit not only us but more specifically the appeal as well? I thought it was a brilliant day and it was done really well.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I have no doubt about that. Carlton's going to be involved in the future every single round on the Good Friday day. Even the lead up, like obviously over the course of the week in the media, Carlton, even Gov, he had a little bit of a video that he'd interview a couple of people where the Good Friday appeal on the day in the hospital, everything like that was obviously deepest in their hearts. And, even obviously with Doc and everything like that as well around his health, you could see there was a few photos and you could see how much it touched him. You could also see, for example, the way Hollands, before obviously he ran out with the team in the banner alongside the North Melbourne, which also I felt like as if that was a good touch as well. He actually had boots signed and he gave them to an actual a child that obviously was at the Royal Hospital at
Yep.
some stage. So I just felt like as if there was a number of things and even just little testaments like that from Holland. He's only 18 years old. But even the club, the way they conduct themselves, both North Melbourne and Carlton, it's probably pretty fitting. I don't know why it wasn't North Melbourne and Carlton originally, knowing where the two suburbs sort of, fit. They're obviously so close and situated so close together that for me, thinking about it now, and this is only just something that's sort of come into my mind as I'm sort of speaking, is why wasn't it these two clubs originally?
I think also, and correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I thought that Friday night footy. So I know Friday night footy was a North Melbourne initiative way back when. They were the ones that pioneered it. And I've got a feeling that we may have been one of the first teams to pioneer it with them.
Okay.
But I may be wrong on that. But regardless, I think you're right. That this North Melbourne Carlton game on a Friday, it screams more of a marquee matchup than what the Bulldogs matchup did for me.
Yeah. And
it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest, if this match gets moved to a Friday night footy fixture next year for even bigger numbers on TV. And potentially even at the MCG, because the crowd that we got there was immense. It was 50,000.
It was humming.
Crazy.
It was humming. Crazy. Even leaving after the game, I sort of got Belen and I, my partner, we got in a bit of it was that packed, and obviously they're doing works on at the moment as well. So there was like different, out on the outskirts, so it was a bit more narrow space than usual. But it was humming.
Pumping. Just before we move on, Jules, Jimmy R asks, what did the toasty cost you at Hector's? I want to keep this going because the more we talk about Hector's Daily,
I think it was about $15 from memory, but that was with the added additions though.
Okay, it's not bad.
And to be fair, it wasn't just like a normal, Wonder Bread type toasty. It was something special.
And another bit of free advertising for Hector's. This might turn into something. I don't know. But Gav Whelan says that the toasties look amazing. He's seen their work on TikTok. So go follow Hector's Daily on TikTok as well. And if that doesn't get us a sponsorship, I don't know what will, to be honest. I really don't. There's nothing more we could do. No, look, it was a brilliant day, the way that it was all put on. But obviously, for us, the more important thing, not the more important thing, but the reason that we're all there is for the footy. And the final scores in the end read North Melbourne 11-18-84 to Carlton 16-11 107. The Blues 23-point winners. The goal kickers for the Blues, Honey, Silvani, DeConning, and Durden 1 each. Motlop with 2, Mackay with 4, and King Charles with 6 on the deck at Marvel. The only injury was Gov with a thigh, and who was replaced by Jack Carroll in the 4th. I don't know how serious that thigh issue is. We haven't had any reports on it since, but he looked okay after the game. I don't think he's going to miss the Adelaide clash at this point. I'd be very, very surprised. And it's good to go through another week unscathed at this point. Now, first thing to talk about, I think, for me, before we get into analysing the game, we've got another tribunal appeal that will be happening before Thursday. I really, really, just give me 2 minutes here, Jules. Not to rant.
Take all the time
to rant, but this needs to be said. I completely understand that we need to protect the head at all costs. I completely understand the environment that the football community is in at the moment with this concussion. What's the word? The legalities around concussion at the moment with
and the scrutiny as well.
I completely understand it, and I am all for protecting the head. Right? I think the Tom Lynch incident from the Bulldogs game, sending him straight to the tribunal, is 100% needs to happen. Right? 3 weeks, 4 weeks minimum. Harry Mackay's hit on Sheasel, we'll get to in a minute, but there were 2 other hits throughout the game. Cam Zurha on Adam Chera with a high fend off that clearly left Chera with a bit of a black eye. Luke McDonald on Harry Mackay earlier in the game, literally coming across a marking contest and elbowing him in the head like flying through the air. I get that it's a spoiling contest, but he still made contact with the head. Football incident. Harry Mackay is a 204 centimetre key forward that has elected to not bump. It's not even a bump. It was a push. It was a shove. He is elected to shove a bloke that is 25 centimetres shorter than him. If Harry was on his knees, he probably still would have made contact with his head at some point. At this point, the MRO and the tribunal have got to be kidding themselves if we think that it's okay to rub players out for a week for that. There was no concussion test, from what I've heard, done by the North Melbourne Football Club, and there was no concussion diagnosis administered by their doctors on Sheasel after the game. It was a free kick, absolutely. Free kick. It was silly by Harry, but it was a free kick. But think back to preseason. Trent Cotchin pile drove someone head first into the ground and got a fine straight out from the MRO. Tom Lynch has repeatedly hit players behind the ball in the head, punched them, knocked them, kicked, like whatever. We've seen so much from Tom Lynch. He's never been graded as medium impact. We saw Charlie Ballard last week for the Suns get off on this exact same incident. So this is why I'd be surprised if H didn't play. But the MRO is absolutely kidding themselves if they think that is medium impact. And they are kidding themselves. This is the biggest point. They're kidding themselves if they think that they would give that grading for that hit either the week before finals or the week before a grand final and rub a player out for a week. There's no consistency. This rubric or criteria that they've come up with at the moment, it's frankly complete bullshit because there's no consistency week to week on what these hits are. And thirdly, they're just costing this club money to appeal yet again another hit at the tribunal that is going to get off. And if it doesn't, this game is in a state that we've never seen. And for me, it's in dangerous territory because that was not even close to medium impact. I'm done.
For me, it's a free kick at best, to be honest with you.
It's a free kick. It was late.
Yeah,
it was
a free kick at best. For me, it's almost. I actually said it in the group chat that we have. I think it was only a couple of days ago that I said it's an embarrassment to the game that these things are happening. It's. Is it? Do you think the AFL just trying to get eyes on the AFL for these kinds of areas, especially a player like Harry? Do you reckon that could be something that's potential? So it's another big article, a big headline potentially is missing.
I think this is the AFL overreacting to the environment that they've been placed in based on this lawsuit that's come against them for concussion. Yeah. And I get it, right? We don't want players late in their careers to, like Paddy McCartan on the weekend. I don't know if you saw the incident, but his head knock looked as innocuous as it gets, and he was out cold, right? He's someone that I look at and maybe a Joel Selwood that in 10, 15 years' time, they worry me with the incidents they've been involved in, and you don't want to see that. But the Harry Mackay incident was no worse than the Luke McDonald incident earlier in the game, which didn't get looked at. And it was no worse than the high fend off from Cam Zurhaar, which didn't get looked at. So where's the consistency? Either all three are rubbed out or none of them are rubbed out.
My thing is if we're going to sit and say that's the benchmark, so from regard, like in terms of the lowest probably grading of head-high contact in regards to Harry Mackay, the other ones that we did mention during the game, how many are there like that every single weekend? Every single game, there's going to be 2, 3, 4 players missing each week.
I would hate for an incident like that in a prelim to cost someone a chance at running out in a grand final. And this is what I'm saying: the MRO and the AFL are kidding themselves if they think that they would grade that as medium impact in a final series. Mate, they wouldn't.
Jerry McCameron today. All right, mate. If that was medium contact, then that's high contact. What he put on the umpire today? Did you not see it? How many weeks is he getting?
Yeah, none. That's fair enough, though. That was actually very funny to watch, to be honest. But no, honestly, like head contact, I get it. It's a fine at best. Like you can still reprimand players for head high contact, but that cannot be graded medium. It just can't. It can't. If that's graded medium impact, mate, a tackle where where your arm slips, literally like a high tackle. What's a high tackle then? A high tackle should be high impact.
Medium impact.
But do you know what I mean? Like every tackle
Yeah.
will be every high tackle should be scrutinized if that's the case. It was clumsy.
But even
Exactly
for
right.
example, where you got the player and they're on the ground and they sort of shove their head into the player that's in front of them, obviously going for the ball, but they do it to try to get a free kick. What are we going to do with that? It's still head high contact.
Agree.
Same thing. It's for me, it's ridiculous. It sets a dangerous precedent. I agree with Clarence Worley. It's just a dangerous precedent of what could happen in the future. Like you're just going to be running out players left, right, and center.
Yeah, I agree. Michael Gazzola has a comment here. You missed a key point. Could Harry have done something else? MRO weigh this up in his case.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. But at the end of the
day,
day, I felt like as if he was trying to pull out in the first place, much like Akers the week before.
the hands went up as soon as he realized he slipped off his shoulder. The hands went up. So I don't think Harry meant to hurt him. I don't think he meant to get him high. It was meant to be a bump, and it wasn't even a bump. It was just a clumsy push.
Yeah, I feel like as if we're trying to. We're trying to protect the players by trying to prevent the action too much rather than the outcome or the potential outcome of the action. So, what I mean by that is, for example, with the Harry Mackay, that player, whoever it was, they'll never getting hurt.
Never.
So I feel like as if I don't know if it's in writing the way it's
written,
etc. But he was never going to be hurting the player. I think Sheasel it was. He was never going to hurt him.
Yeah, and we're going to move on from this because we don't want to talk about the appeal that is coming all night. That'll be dealt with tomorrow. I don't know if Terry's setting one up, if he's going to have another live stream of the appeal, but I'm assuming for a player of Harry's caliber, he may. So keep your eyes on the Blue Broad channel just in case that does pop up for tomorrow. But, this just honestly needs to be reined in just a little bit. Like the definition of medium impact in that case for 1 week, a 1 week suspension for a hit like that is absolutely. It would be disappointing if this was upheld. Very, very disappointing. Not because he's our player, but for the state of the game. For the state of the game. And for anyone that wants to say, Joe, you're biased, I'm not. I did this 3 weeks ago on Shane McAdams' hit when I said that shouldn't be 3 weeks. It can't be worse than Cozzie's hit, and it was. It was graded as worse. And this is the precedent that we're going into with this criteria that they've come up with, because certain things will be looked at as medium, certain things won't. They probably should. That's all. Yeah. I saw this comment from Stu.
Yeah, that's
his mother.
I was just thinking of my childhood.
Well, yeah, Stu's mum gave him a harder clip across the year than what Harry gave to Sheasel, but I've seen worse than that, Jules, from our childhood. I reckon. I reckon you know what I'm talking about. All right, let's get into the analysis now, Jules. And to kick it off, there's probably no better way, really. I don't know if you agree.
Book of Judd?
No. Just quickly, from Odin Imaging, a bit late to convo, but they can also vouch for Hector's Deli. They're absolutely incredible. So that's another little plug for Hector's.
Anyone knows them, give them a word. Tell them we're out here.
If you want to sponsor the show, this is the airtime we're going to give you. That's all I'm saying. And Jules, on Cassano's calcs, which we're getting into now,
talk to me.
I said to you pre-show, I didn't want to know what you were going to say. So I don't know. I don't even know what's coming here.
Yeah, well, when was it? Was it Saturday? I was sort of posting a few ideas, obviously, in our group chat, and I was like, you know what? I wanted to discuss like the work rate and the intensity. But I found something else that I just wanted to bring out, which is very interesting because there's a conversation on Fox Sports that around we're still winning games, but we're not at our best. Okay, I think it was Hunter.
Firstly,
go.
What was the first stat you were going to go with? Distance
covered, correct.
I
think we covered 286 kilometers. They covered 283 kilometers. So it was only 3 kilometers difference But we had the top 5 players, and within the top 5 players, I think they had 1.5, 2 kilometers combined together. That was within the 3K.
I still think that's a good stat because 3Ks between 5 players is actually
correct. Yeah, it's
decent.
massive. So for me, it's sort of like the reason why I wanted to point that out was because what are the other players doing?
Yeah.
All right.
Fair.
So that was something I wanted to look into as well. But then I was like, I can't really get all the other players' stats unless I go like delving into a bit much. You know what I mean?
Champion data.
But then I obviously just got home before and was like, sorry.
Champion data.
Yeah. Wait, if anyone knows anyone, let me know.
David King over here.
Me.
Go.
Nah, so look, I've worked this out literally probably an hour or so before the show, but I wanted to look and check out 2022 and compare it to 2023 just to see how we're going. What do you reckon was our 1 wood over the course of the first half of the season, Joe? What do you reckon was our 1 wood?
Centre clearances.
Yeah, or just clearances overall. Would you not say that? Yeah, whether it's stoppage clearances, etc. All right, so
sure.
Let's go this year. All right, no, let's start off with last year, 2022. So first round, clearances, plus 18. Second round, plus 7. Round 3, plus 6. Round 4, negative 16. Negative 16, mind you, that was at the Gold Coast game. Up there, all right. But I wanted to go the 4 rounds because I wanted to give it a better comparison with 2023. All right, so overall, we're plus 15 last year.
Okay.
Opening 4 rounds. This year, negative 4, round 1. Negative 3, round 2. Plus 5, round 3. And negative 11, round 4.
Okay.
Overall, negative 13. That's 30, the difference. 30.
Okay.
So for me, it just shows that, our midfield group, we're not at our best. Probably have a few outs, to be honest with you, over the last 3-4 rounds. But we're finding ways. And the ways that we're doing that is the turnover game, which we're getting better at. And we didn't have that last year. And mind you, the second half of the year, okay, we went away from our clearances. We weren't really dominant there, and we weren't winning games. And we were struggling because we didn't have that other elements of our game. This year, at the beginning of the year, we have it, and we're winning games off the back of that.
That's, you know what? I'm going to go out and say that's your best Cassano's calc segment you've ever done.
We should leave it late more often.
Because you actually did some research this time. You can just look at the stat sheet and that'll do it.
I know.
No, that's huge. 30, a differential of 30 across the first 4 rounds is so. We've all been worried, obviously, that the midfield isn't working. That this midfield mix that we saw last year across the course, not just across the first 4 rounds, but across the course of the season, that dominated and beat up groups of other midfield units. It honestly hasn't been there, and that's plain to see. We're not as brutal. It doesn't feel like we're as tough as what we were. But we've taken 14 out of 16 points so far. And pre-season, I remember on one of these shows, I said, what I want to see this year is scoring from transition and stopping defensive transition. And I think, to be fair, even though we've lost a little bit of our 1 wood, which we'll get to the inclusions that'll come this week for Thursday when we talk about the Adelaide game, that'll probably help that immensely. Even without that 1 wood, we've been putting teams away, and we haven't allowed, that run of like 4, 5, 6 goals that we are so accustomed
usually do.
So I think that's something we definitely need to hang our hat on. 100%.
Yeah. And the way I feel like is I think the boys have sort of said it. I know Walsh has said it. I know Weeders has said it in the media as well. And they don't want to be peaking now this time of year.
Yep.
Good teams don't peak at this time of the year. And we're still winning games and we're not even at our best. Now, mind you, I don't know if we're going to reach our best. Okay. That's still, a question mark to be fair. With the added additions and with obviously the improvement, obviously in the center balances and around the stoppages, etc., which I think should happen. It's going to be quite scary.
Yeah, absolutely. That was good. Well done, Jules. You've brought some quality to the show. It's good. Take your hat off. Now, in terms of the game itself, first half was deplorable. Like,
Yeah.
beyond. How's this, actually? If you go back and listen to last week's episode, I should put it in because it was a little bit of a pump up for me. But I said, first half, don't be surprised if we're down at halftime or very, very close because they're going to come out firing. And to their credit, I even said to you at the ground, they did. They actually came out with a bit of hunger because they wanted to make sure that they keep this marquee matchup and whatnot. But second half would blow them out. Literally exactly what I said. And we'd probably win by 40. We probably should have won by more than 40, 60 at the end of the day. And we took the foot off. We'll get there in a minute. But just you tipped the cap before. I'm going to tip the cap now. Between the two of us, quality. Just quality content on this podcast. Now, that first half, their hunger for the contest aside and their hunger to work harder than us aside, we were putrid. That was, honestly, I think that might have been the worst half of football that we've played probably since that Brisbane game last year at the Gabba that I can remember. That we were shocking.
Very sluggish, a lot of turnovers. By a few players that you wouldn't really see it from.
Yeah.
Like Fisher, for example.
Fisher. Yep.
Yeah. Over a few, which I was quite surprised. I think even Wiedering as well.
We just looked panicked.
For me,
like they looked panicked at times. It didn't make sense to me. It's like they thought they didn't have as much time on the ball as what they probably did.
Yeah, a lot of it was happening as well from like from a mark as well. So obviously like going off the mark and then it's still not obviously hitting the kick. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what we can do to obviously manage that area for improvement. But I think Fisher did step up in the second half. I have to say. And to be fair, we've been on his back a little bit as well over the last few weeks. So, yeah, I feel like as if he's only going to be I feel, especially over the next few weeks when we do get our players, back in, I think he's going to go on another level because of it. I think he's going to be able to get the service that he actually needs to be able to produce what he can.
It's interesting with Fisher because he had 28 disposals on the day. I think he was our highest disposal getter or second highest disposal getter.
Second, I think Cripps, then
Fisher,
then Gov.
Apparently he went at 80% and only turned the ball over 5 times. But watching the game live without looking at the stat sheet, it felt like every time he went near the ball, it's not a slide on him. And I know we've been a bit harsh on him this year because we're expecting a lot more from him, and I still expect a lot more from him considering how long he's been in the system now and what we need from him. But that felt like the least effective 28 disposal game watching live that I've seen. And then on reflection, I haven't watched the replay in full yet, and I still want to do that just to watch Fisher. But he turned the ball over. Or if it wasn't a direct turnover from him, he put his teammate into a position where they had to turn it over. Do you know what I mean? And it felt like every time he was in that little pocket on the wing, that he was trapped and just didn't know what to do with it.
There was one time we received that handball, the handball receive off a mark, and then he was sort of on that side of the wing where it wasn't really natural for a left footer. So then he obviously quickly had to handball the ball quickly off to another player and then put the player under the pump. I can't remember who it was. I think it might have been Cowan or someone. So yeah, I feel like as if we sort of got to be better at picking up moments when to go quick and when not.
Yep.
I feel like we're still struggling in that area, but I do prefer going. I do prefer going quick. I prefer it. But yeah, we still got to pick up moments.
This is what frustrated me in the first half. We sat level 3 nosebleeds this week, which was actually a really good bird's eye view for having a look at how we were trying to move the ball and how we were setting up defensively. I thought defensively we were actually okay, right? Other than maybe when we turned the ball over and we were caught out, I thought from their kick-ins, we were as structured as what they were on our kick-ins in that first half. It was very hard for them to get out like it was hard for us to get out. What was pissing me off to no end was on our kick-ins or when we were able to force a turnover on the back half. In the first half, I did not see one switch of the football to the fat side of the ground. And it was on 3, 4, 5 times. And I was screaming. You remember, Jules, I was screaming for it by the end of that half, right? And I'm tearing my hair out going, it's a 30, 40-meter kick across the ground. We've got the outnumber. If there is a turnover, we should still win the contest and be able to clean up. And we didn't look there once. We kept going back to that wing, back to that wing, back to that wing that North was set up for, and they just kept rebounding and rebounding and rebounding back inside 50. And it was pissing me off to no end.
Because my thing is, look, I love football. I watch a lot of football, but obviously played a lot of football, but soccer, obviously. And Joe obviously did a little bit of analysis as well whilst I was playing. All we did, especially around our defense in football or soccer, was move the ball across, move it across at pace as quickly as possible. All right, because it's sort of like uncontested in a way. All right, and then what we do is
the way that it was described was that you need to change the angle of attack if it's not working down one side.
Correct. All right, and then from there, if you're able to move the ball into the middle, okay, because then obviously once you move the ball into the middle, it's a bit more dangerous, especially in even football for that matter. But it opens up the options to go left pocket, right pocket, obviously in full footy terms, or down the middle. Okay, and it makes it a lot more difficult for defenders. All right, because as a defender, you sort of want to just narrow your angles down as much as possible. So you want the ball in front of you, you want your player in front of you, and it makes it a lot easier if it's like that. But obviously, if you're parallel, okay, it makes it a lot more difficult to see what everything's around you. Okay, because you got to be spinning your head a lot more. All right. So in football, it's the same. And then obviously with football as well, you're able to see different angles. Okay. And then from there, if players up from the opposition team aren't working hard enough to cover the angles or getting close enough to the man to be able to make an effect, then that's when your option on the ball. Okay. When you are in possession, you're able to obviously punish accordingly. So I feel like as if it's something that we need to work on. And we sort of need to back ourselves, especially with the kicking that Sard, Gov, Doc has, even Cowan now, and Wiedering in the back line. They're all efficient kicks. I don't know why they don't back themselves a little bit more.
Oh, mate, like the fact that switch was on, and we've got and the fact that now we've got wingers at our disposal that run all day and can create that space, and we still, it's not even that we don't take the option, we don't even look. Like your first option should be to look for that switch straight away to move the ball. The only one that does it consistently enough for mine at the moment is Mitch McGovern. Every time he marks the ball on the halfback flank, he looks straight across the ground and takes the first kick that he can see, more often than not, unless he's got nothing. But he does it consistently. Every other player in that back line or anyone that turns the ball over in that back half just doesn't look there. Just have a look, and if it's there, take it. I'd rather us turn the ball over there, taking the game on, knowing that probably 6 or 7 times out of 10 it's gonna work out, and we're gonna be able to punish a team. Because going back to the well on that same wing, time and time and time again, it's gonna get you nowhere. It got us nowhere in that first half. If we played like that against a better side than North Melbourne, we would have been put to the sword in that first half. We cannot do that against better teams. We just can't. You've got to take the game on. You see Collingwood do it. I'm not saying do it as often as what Collingwood do it, because I think they do it way too much, and that's very, very easy to expose a team like that. But there are moments that you've got to pick, like you said, Jules, and we didn't pick them in the first half. Third quarter started, and I swear to you, tell me if I'm lying, Jules, 5 minutes in, first time we had the ball in our back half, we switched the ball without even thinking, and I jumped out of my seat like we'd scored, because I knew that we were going to see something.
You go on mute. You haven't frozen yet.
Muted myself.
You're on mute.
Yeah, I didn't freeze. I muted myself. And that we were finally going to see.
I might have to chat. I might have to have a chat to the VPN.
And that we were finally, that's true. I haven't dropped out yet. We were finally going to see something different in that third quarter, and we did. We blew them out. I
called it as well.
We both. Yeah, you actually did. Jules, to his credit, turned to me at halftime and he goes, 6 unanswered. Yeah, and it was 6 unanswered. I nailed it. Nailed it. But footy's not a hard game when you break it down like that. It's really not. Take your moments, take the game on, and expose your opposition. You've got to change the angle of attack, and we've got to start doing that a lot more often, especially against this Thursday night against the side against Adelaide. We're going to have to take this game on, because if we start doing what we did against North, they will punish us. They'll punish us.
It's especially like when the other team's set up obviously in a zone as well. You really need to move them around and not just kick the ball long down the line because that's what they want. They're going to try to get numbers around there very quickly to obviously, repel from that and obviously, get the ball from their D50 into forward 50 as quick as possible on the transition. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Adelaide game plays out because they've been really, really good, especially last round and round 4.
They've shown that they are more than prepared to take the game on and to play a modern style of football. And speaking about, before we get to the fourth quarter and the fade out, speaking of modern footy, a reading from the book of Judd, chapter 10, page 73. In modern football, broadly speaking, there are 2 types of coach, the Lee Matthews style and the Mick Malthouse style. The Matthews style coach is highly focused on his own team, less on the opposition. You always had the feeling that Lee would have been happy to print off his game plan and pin it up where everyone in the competition could see it and say, good luck trying to stop us. That was the Brisbane Lions under Lee. You knew exactly what they were going to do, but there were days when it was impossible to stop them. Years, in fact. And I'm not going to talk about the Mick Malthouse style coaching because we don't like Mick. But what I say is this, okay, from that. And that this book, the Bible, this gospel, has given us proof yet again that what we need to do as a football club is what we just spoke about then. Take the game on. Number 1, first step. Play our way, take the game on. Number 2, which is what we're about to speak about now, learn to put teams to the fucking sword. Now, Jules, you have been banging on about this for a long, long time, and I'll give you credit, okay? Last year against the Hawks, last year against Port Adelaide, those fade outs, you hated it, right? And against a side like North Melbourne now, I'm on board. I'm on the bandwagon saying that should have been a 60-point win, like what Geelong did today to the Hawks. That's what we should have been seeing. And we faded out in the last 10 minutes again. And it is not a habit that we should be getting ourselves into at this stage in our development. Yeah,
for me, it's non-negotiable. It genuinely shouldn't have happened. I don't know. We just capitulated, really. I watched it back, especially that last quarter. And this was something that was happening over the course of the game, to be fair. But really, in the last quarter, it really got on my nerves. The amount of broken tackles. All right, and there weren't even broken tackles where we were actually going for it. Like the actual tackling, there was no ferociousness in it whatsoever, or any tenacity in them. They were just half-assed tackles, and they were breaking them with ease. We were getting fingernails on them. Those kinds of tackles, those fake tackles.
I'd like to know the stat, because I know they counted. I'd like to know how many missed tackles we had, actually, to be honest.
Oh, mate, it would have been through the charts. I would have loved to get my hands on it, to be honest with you. And I would have spoken it as well during my calcs as well. But if anyone does know it, let us know, please. But the amount of like two-handed tackles, just got their fingernails on them, or one-handed tackles, or just put their arm out there, or a quick fend off without even trying to tackle their arm and things like that was a joke. Imagine if that happened against Melbourne, what Petrarca, Oliver, and the like would have done. It's ridiculous.
This is what I understand, because
one thing is, even though it's North Melbourne, you need to make sure that you have standards. Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
And that's not the standards that I want to have as a Carlton football player.
So I've got
a person that actually watches, a big fan of the club. I don't want to see that.
And what I'll say is this club's mindset has changed, because I saw a quote from Wiedering here. This is from @UpTheBaggers on Twitter. He does a fantastic job, Carlton News and Stats, with providing as much Carlton content from interviews and whatnot through Twitter. And he's posted an excerpt from like a Carlton media article from Wiedering today. And the quote from Wiedering is, I'll be honest here, it was a good thing. This is talking about the last 10 minutes. I'll be honest here, it was a good thing the camera wasn't on me. I was probably as furious as Vossi in that last 5 or 6 minutes. In my 8 years at the club, I spent a lot of time losing. So at the same time, you've got to flip this into a positive. We've learned a lot of lessons in the past with no points in the back pocket. The way we want to finish the game is with our identity, and that's tough football. They showed us up. So it's something we have to go to work on. And then he speaks about the club's leadership journey. It all comes back to the values and identity that we're building at the club. In my 8 years, in Cripper's 10 years, Doc's the same, Ed Curnow, we've experienced a fair bit of losing. Sometimes you got to take a step back and appreciate the position you're in, and winning is pretty handy. But you don't want to go back to that losing feeling or culture. So for me, that says that, and it's a positive, right? That they're not happy with the way that we faded out, and that's fine. Words are fine. We now need to see action, because this is
100%.
more than a handful of times that we've faded out against teams now over the last year and a half. And it cannot be happening against teams that we are just much better than. And in a game that we had full control over, full control.
Yeah. And my thing is, like, it's a non-negotiable to see a belting for against a team like Hawthorn, a team like North, etc. All right. But I also want to see a convincing win over teams like Adelaide.
Yep.
I want to see it, because
I
expect it. All right. Because I've had a look at their team. I just pre-show. All right. They have a fair bit of talent on their list. You know, Rochelle, Rankin, you know, Tex Walker. I know he's getting a bit old, but he still kicked 4 goals last week. Last year or so, he's been in pretty good nick. All right. They have a few that go through the midfield. But if we get the likes of Kennedy and Walsh back this week, we still should win. We should win pretty convincingly. At least we should have the game on our terms for the majority of the game.
100%.
Even if it's over there. And I know we haven't won Adelaide Oval. I know traveling, it's been a little bit difficult for us as well. But it's just another step that we need to overcome.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about the preview in a minute. Before we do, let's tick off some Blues cues. This could be about the game that we've just spoken about. Could be about anything. This is all from the Instagram. And if you're watching live, leave some in the comments. If we get time, we'll get to the Blues cues in the comments as we go. But straight off the Instagram, first one, Brandon Moon asks, when do you think we will take our first loss? And speaking of Adelaide, I actually think it's going to be this week, just quietly.
This week? Who have we got? We've got Adelaide, and then we have Saints.
Yeah, it's one of the next two. I think it's one of the next two if we're going to lose one for me.
Yeah, the thing I think we've got obviously like Adelaide, Saints, West Coast. Then we go Brisbane. Who is it?
And
Brisbane Bulldogs, or maybe them flipped.
Brisbane Bulldogs. Yeah, Brisbane Bulldogs, something
like that. So, I mean, I'm not looking in the too distant future, but if I was going to say, I mean, we shouldn't lose these next 2 games, in my eyes.
The Saints are pretty good, man.
Maybe the Saints, but we'll see. You know, obviously how they go this week as well. But yeah,
I just think if we play the way we've been playing, especially to start games, Adelaide could give us some serious trouble, and we'll get there when we talk.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I have no doubt they will. But you know, like Collingwood are playing Saints this week as well, so we'll see obviously how they go as well. I reckon maybe the Brisbane one, to be honest with you. I can honestly see us win the next 3 games still.
I hope you're right. Mitch Burton asks, how many touches for Walsh on Thursday? And Lockie McKinnon says, should we captain him in Supercoach? I think Walsh will have 35, like he did in his first game back against the Bulldogs last year. And if you want to make him your Supercoach captain, go ahead. he's a lock for me.
I reckon 28.
Okay. And a goal. I think he will kick a snag. Oliver Lynch asks, do the boys get up, get around? Do the boys get, I don't know, do the boys get caught up in the hype around Walsh's return? Lesser individual. I'm not sure. I know Oliver's actually watching. So if you want to maybe rephrase what you've asked in this room.
Sorry, Oliver. Joe just can't read.
I'm just confused, man. I just get confused sometimes, you know. Anthony Lucci asks, did we see our game plans, the next layer in our game plan with that switch that we made at halftime against North? Yeah, I think we did. We did. And we spoke about it in terms of moving that ball a lot quicker, right?
Yeah.
Can I just say, while we're here, and we'll actually, no, you know what? We'll talk about him in the votes. That's fine. We'll get there. Jimmy Laser asks, in the next 4 weeks, is a 2 wins from 4 a pass mark? So what do we say? We got Adelaide, Saints, Dogs, Brisbane. I would say 2 out of
That
those
West
4
Coast.
I'd take.
West Coast, Brisbane.
Oh.
For me, it should be more than.
I think 3 is possible.
Yeah. For me,
I would say 2 out of
3.
4. 2 out of 4 is a pass mark, considering where we're at in the season and the record that we've built. But 3 would be nice. 3 would be really nice.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Silvio Cassano, he left us a comment here, Jules. Your dad just says shit game, and that's it.
3 good-looking roosters you are. Oliver Lynch, obviously, he's got his question in the chat. So, do they get caught up in the hype of a player's return?
Okay. No, I don't think they will. I think they'll be boosted by Walsh's return, to be honest.
Yeah, I think they will too. Obviously, last year, obviously with Doc having a long layoff, and in the opening round, they really got around him as well. And then even Marshbank as well, and he's returned late in the last. When was it? I think it was in the Essendon game, midway through last year, was it not? And then he got injured pretty much straight away from memory. But the boys got around him as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's only going to be positive.
I think it will. And there were a few other questions around ins and outs for next week, which we will get to in the preview in a minute. Jules, anything else to say about the North Melbourne game? I think we covered it pretty well. I know we haven't gone into individual performances yet, but I think we're about to do that right now, to be honest.
Yeah, I think we're going to go into it now. I think it's going to be interesting to see when our team goes up against a good quality opposition. That's very structurally sound.
I think we're going to get that.
I don't know, for example, with Geelong, if they were at their peak. I know they are usually structurally sound, but I don't know if they're really humming at the moment. But when we do come up against that, maybe Saints will be the game, to be honest, underline, because they've got a lot out and they're still producing the goods. So I think that might be the game where, structurally we'll see how we're going.
Let's talk about the votes. And if you are watching live, leave your votes in the comments as we go. Jules, I'm going to start.
You start.
Because your votes...
in the chats are probably going to be having a go at me, and I'll say something. Right. It's okay.
I've got one vote here for Mitch McGovern. I think he was fantastic all game. I thought his ball use was really, really clean. I thought his positioning in the back half was impactful enough to stop North on the counter multiple times, pretty much on his own, and delay that transition football. And I think Gov, since I know round 1 he copped a little bit of flack for his last 5 minutes, but even for the rest of that round 1 game, I thought he was really solid. And every other game since, he has been someone that I've looked to personally in the back line and gone, no issue with how you're traveling, Gov. No issue at all. None. And it's exactly what we were all hoping and expecting from Gov this year. I gave 2 votes to King Charles, 6 goals for the big fella under the roof. The first half, Jules, Charlie and Harry, both, the service that they were getting inside 50 was disgusting. And somehow they still found themselves on the scoreboard with multiple goals by halftime.
The only good service they were getting was from each other.
Yeah, 100%. But I thought Charlie, and I've given him the 2 votes here, there was moments in that game, and it was coming up against a defense where you expected Charlie to make mincemeat, which he did. And by all means, 6 goals was the pass mark in that game for me for Charlie. But he did things in that game that I was laughing at. Like we were laughing at, Jules, at how ridiculous it was. Like that one-handed grab on the wing.
It's a joke.
Like piss take. Like the way that the thing that made me laugh a couple of times was when the ball started coming in a lot quicker. Charlie with his defender one-on-one, you could see the defender starting to panic so much when he saw the ball coming towards his way. It made me laugh just going, if you're a defender on Charlie Curnow in 2023, you're going to be shitting a brick every time that ball comes inside 50 because he can make something happen like from nothing, from absolutely nothing. But I had to give the 3 votes. I had to Harry Mackay. Yes, there were a couple of typical Harry Mackay instances where he was a little bit clumsy, and the goal of the year contender in the first half was incredible. The banana after dropping it and having to pick it back up and whatnot was phenomenal. His miss in the last quarter was the absolute lowest of the low. But when you've come off 3 games where you've copped a fair bit of flack and you've kicked 4 goals, you've had 14 marks around the ground, which is the key one for me. 14 marks around the ground. He had 2 direct goal assists as well to go with these four goals. 4 contested marks, 6 marks inside 50, and kicked 4 goals himself. I just thought that's the bounce back game that you expect from a player of Harry's caliber. And we got it in spades. And I just hope that we do see him play against Adelaide and he does get off on this appeal tomorrow night. I'm assuming is when the appeal is going to take place. And yeah, I just hope Harry's back after that game. He looked a lot more confident and a lot more comfortable out there, regardless of a couple of heart and mouth moments.
Yeah, for sure. So with my votes were done pretty much straight after the game, maybe even Saturday, actually. And then obviously having to look back at it, I actually changed my votes pre-show, probably about half an hour or so before, but it was too late, apparently. So I'm going to say why I voted Gov, Cripps, and Charlie, and then I'll go into why I really wanted to change them. But then Joe, with his, his radical views and his communism sort of nature, and he's he hasn't given me any.
No,
chance,
it takes time.
So
it takes time to do these graphics, Jules. You got to give me much more time.
You can change them. Can you put my actual votes in the actual votes?
No, because that's done as well. So just continue.
That should be very easy to do, should it not?
The votes are submitted. It's like the Brownlow. Like the umpires don't get there on Brownlow medal count night and go, oh, hold on, wait. I have I change it because I realized when I gave the votes out.
So Gov, 1 vote for obvious reasons. I feel like as if he stays healthy, all right, he is a player that gives us an opportunity to win another 3-4 games. I reckon he's that kind of player. The amount of times he's very similar to Sard in the nature where he saves us a lot, all right, because of his closing down speeds and intercept and marking ability. And then he also, with his kicking ability and his burst and dash across half back, he's able to set us up as well. So going forward. So I feel like as if he's if he can stay fit, play 20, 21 games this year, and then hopefully peaking at the right time of the year, come finals time, he's going to be a big player for us, all right? Especially in finals, I reckon. Cripps, I gave it 2 votes because I felt like as if in the midfield, he's probably the only person that was doing little to much, I would say. And then Chari with the bag of 6, pretty obvious. I did want to take Cripps out, though, about half an hour to an hour before prior to the show, and then put H in there. The reason why I didn't put H in there was because of Joe's, didn't really give it reasons of not to put him in there, but obviously because of dropping the ball, some of the stupid stuff that he was doing in regards to the out of bounds and the full, some of his kicking and things like that. I was just like, because the way I think, if you're a forward, you've got to kick that goal, because if that's not the goal, that could be the goal of the opportunity, or even a kick inside forward 50 that potentially against a good side might cost us a game. So that was my sort of emotional thinking straight after, or the 24 hours post the game on Friday. But then obviously watching the game again and all the positive things he did do, not even the inside 50, but between the arcs as well. I wanted to give him a lot of credit as well. There was another player as well, which probably didn't really have the biggest disposal game, but I reckon pretty honorable mention. And if there was 4 votes, he'd definitely be in it, but is not. Is Chera. I just feel, last year before he did go out, he was playing well. Then he had a bit of an injury on the sideline for a bit, came back and probably wasn't his best the last couple of rounds, like especially against Collingwood. I think he got close to 30 and kicked 2. And then obviously the start of this season, he's been averaging about 25 disposals. But what I want to say that has gone up and through the roof is his pressure and his tackling. And you can see it. I think he laid about 7 or 8 tackles on the weekend. Only had about 18 disposals. But I feel like as if with the players like Kennedy that's been out, even Hewitt, only a couple of weeks, he's been a player that's really stepped up in that area.
And I think with Kennedy and Walsh coming back this week, I'm very excited to see what Ches can do because he's now like 4th in line or 3rd in line every week as that midfielder that we look to. So he's going to be freed up massively. Just before we move on to the votes leaderboard, dynamic. I do know who Tom Selleck is, and I've actually never been told that I look like Magnum PI, but I will take that because Tom Selleck was a very, very good looking man. And, you know, sometimes you just got to take what people give you, you know, and I'll take that one.
Are we going to nickname you Magnum from now on?
Apparently that's the nickname they want to give, and I don't think that's going to stick, but I'll take the credit. That's fine.
You know, I'll nickname you Mags.
The votes leaderboard stands as such. We got Lewis Young in 5th on 7 votes, Nick Newman and Adam Sard tied in 3rd on 8, Cripper on 11, and Charlie on 15 votes, leading the Almost Blues Brothers most valuable player for 2023 after 4 rounds so far. To finish off the review, as we always do, she is back. Libby's last word.
Hey everyone, it's Libby with Libby's last words, and this is what I thought about the game. First of all, I never want to see that again. First half was absolutely terrible. North's ball handling was way stronger than ours. But second half, I've got to say, that was the best. I was jumping out of my seat. I was absolutely pumped. Pumped. Just unbelievable. I'm so happy we won. I sang that song. We dominated first half. But I found a thing. If we dominate first half and we do bad in the second half, we're going to lose. It's just us. We're going to lose if we dominate first half. Yet again, that second half, I reckon that was the best second half we've ever played since 1995 when my big sister was born. Not the best day, but not the best year, but whatever. But boys, I'm pumped. Absolutely pumped. Thursday, I'm absolutely pumped. Sammy Walsh is back. My baby, the prince, is back. But anyways, Charlie, the Cassano brothers absolutely dominated it. Absolutely. I reckon Charlie Curnow's definitely going to win the Coleman medalist this year. And I reckon we're going to play the finals. We're going to play the finals this year. I just have a feeling. We're going to play amazing. Just absolutely amazing. And a special shout out to Jesse Mortlop. He is such a young gun. He is a gun. He's such a strong player. And that goal reminded me of Eddie Betts. Which made me sad, but happy that we can have another Eddie Betts on the team. So, yeah. But Ollie Hollands, you absolute legend. He's going to win the Rising Star. You already know it. He's such a strong player, and he's just started, and he's such a strong player. You already know he's winning the brand. He's winning the Rising Star. You know it. You just know it. But he's just a strong player out there. He just gives it his all, and you can tell. You can absolutely tell he gives it his all. He's a special shout out to him as well. So Jesse and Ollie, you get the special shout out. But I'm pumped to see Sammy Walsh back. And that's what I thought about the game. Go the Blues!
She's a ripper. She just ripped on.
She
just ripped on Dan's Mrs. Lauren by saying it's the best half that we've played since 1995, which is the year that my big sister was born, which wasn't the best day nor the best year, but whatever.
Oh, send this to Lauren or what?
Oh, well, I don't know if Lauren's heard that yet, but if she does,
wow.
Yeah, she's going to give her a nice little whack. To finish off, as we always do, the round 5 preview against the Crows this week. We are playing on Thursday night. We are opening Gather Round. I don't even know what that means, but we're opening Gather Round for round 5. It's the extra round.
I've been telling people it's Magic Round.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, Thursday night, I think 7:40 is the bounce. Adelaide requested us to open the round, I believe. And why wouldn't they, considering we have never, ever beaten them or Port Adelaide or won a game at the Adelaide Oval in the history of that ground? So, Jules, this is a big one. I think this is, to be fair, and considering where Richmond and Geelong sit, like so in retrospective, I think this is our biggest test yet. This is probably our first true test of the season. And for me, I am thankful that we've already been told that Kennedy should play, but that Walsh will definitely be returning, as well as Blake Acres, as long as he doesn't have a setback with his little niggle that he had from the game a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Much needed boosts to this side at this point. And those midfield numbers that you spoke about with clearances, we're going to really, really have to get on top of that quickly and get our one wood back very, very quickly for this game on Thursday.
Yeah. For me, I've been looking through Adelaide's numbers. They don't win the clearance battle. They don't win it. That's not their game. They're a modern style game. They work on transition. So that's sort of what we've been doing at the moment. I think if we can keep the ball inside out, I mean, it's pretty obvious, but I feel like as if we can keep the ball inside forward 50, all right, and not allow them to transition easily, and that's obviously through our structure and our setup behind the ball. I feel like as if with the talent that we do have in there, I know I've seen a few comments in regards to Motlop and how dangerous he's been as of late, especially the game on the weekend. I feel like as if with our two talls in H, Charlie, and Dirt's obviously a little bit quiet over the weekends, but I know what we have seen and the Motlop and what they can do. I feel like as if we should be able to put a score on, to be honest.
Isaac Rankin and Josh Rochelle.
Yeah.
Scare the shit out of me, to be honest.
They've been freakishly good.
Mate, this Adelaide side is actually very, very exciting to watch. I've watched,
and then you've even got Tex as well, kicked 4 as well. So
he did, but I think we can subdue Tex. Like Weeders with Tex, that doesn't concern me. It's the other two at the moment that are just causing havoc. Every time they step out onto the park, Rankin in particular, but Rochelle off the half forward flank is just doing things for that side that they have missed.
Who goes to him?
So I think Gov. I think Newman. See, this is where my head's at. Like, I think Newman, just because he's done a lockdown job on like a medium small type with Green, I think maybe take him to Rochelle, but that could push Newman too far up the ground at times, and we lose our structure at the back. So I'm not. I think he's the logical matchup at this stage. Gov probably has the speed for Rankin to close him down, but after what I saw Adam Saad do to Tyson Stengel a couple of weeks back, he's probably the one that I'd be sending to Isaac Rankin. So I feel like
I'm with you. I reckon Gov will go to Rochelle.
Gov.
And Gov.
See, I'm sticking with Newman, and I'm thinking that Gov can just slot the hole.
I just think because I think Rochelle obviously gets up the ground. I mean, again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens over the course of the week, how they plan. And then Saad will go to Rankin. I reckon that's a lock, to be honest.
Yeah, Saad to Rankin feels about right. I've watched 3 of Adelaide's 4 games, and I've actually really liked what I've seen. I know they got done by GWS in the first round, but they probably should have won that game quite comfortably. They missed a lot of chances in the first half. And I think the way they move the ball is quick. It's clean more often than not, and it exposes opposition defenses that are too stagnant.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm worried about. Now, I say that we need to be on top of our contested game, because if we let a side that is weaker in that contested game get on top, we have no chance of winning this game. No chance. The only chance, the chance that I see us having in this game and dominating from the outset is that bruising, brutal footy from the centre and from stoppages that we became accustomed to last year.
Do you remember the game? It would have been around 15 or 16, I reckon, against West Coast away last year. That first quarter.
Yep.
where
we
it
kept
was
them
just
scoreless.
relentless repetition, inside 50 pressure. It was just manic pressure.
Yep.
I think that's what we need to see against Adelaide on Thursday night. That's
Yeah,
that's the kind of game we need to see.
I don't think this is a game where we can rely on this newfound transition style or ball movement that we're trying to play. I think we need to find our one wood, and with the ins that we've both got here, and we'll talk about the ins and outs now.
Mm-hmm.
If we can't, with Walsh and Kennedy coming back in for Akers as well, Akers aside, but with Walsh and Kennedy back into that midfield group, we should dominate at centre clearance, honestly. Like the bounce of that ball every time. I know they've got Riley O'Brien. He's a brilliant ruckman, but all Pito needs to do is throw his body around, and it's back to round 1 last year against the Tigers when we saw just brutal footy out of the middle. Every time there was a goal kicked, it was just relentless to get the football and feed it out and get it inside 50 quickly, lock it in. That has to be the game for us at Adelaide for 4 quarters, because if it's not, they're gonna give us some serious headaches.
Yeah, we need to just be able to play it on our terms, because I feel like as if they can turn it over, then they can cause us obviously damage going the other way. With when they do turn it over, they're gonna have space. So if they do have space, that the likes of Rankin, Rochelle, etc., they're gonna cause us a lot of headaches. So I feel it's gonna be interesting. I still feel like as if our tall forwards should do damage.
Well, Darcy Fogarty as well. He did a number on us last year, which pissed me off that we allowed him to do what he did to us. I think Lewis Young has a matchup on his hands here that he really, really needs to get physical in. Because if he doesn't, Darcy Fogarty could get off the chain and kick 3 or 4 and cause some headaches again, like we saw last year. Now, we've both got Walsh and Kennedy in along with Akers. I think they're the 3 logical ins at this point, unless there's any further injuries that come out that we can't foresee. Leave your ins and outs in the comments as we're doing this. But the question that everyone had during our Blues Qs more so was, at this point, it looks like O'Brien and Honey probably come out. Who's the third or who's the sub? And we're both going different here. Now, if you want to start, Jules.
Yeah, I felt I was umming and ahhing on a few players, to be honest with you. I was umming and ahhing on Curnow, so Ed Curnow. Just because if we are going to be bringing in those kind of midfielders, then what was going to happen? I'm like, maybe Ed Curnow could go obviously half forward, because he sort of did majority of that against Richmond and sort of had a pretty good game there as well. And that's the kind of position that he was playing, obviously, in the preseason. Then I was umming and ahhing on Fisher, but then I thought, against Adelaide, we sort of want that pace and that foot school. So I'm like, maybe not. And then I said Silvani, because I feel like as if we are going to play the 2 rucks, TDK and Pito, I feel like as if Silvani can still make that impact off as a sub, I guess. But even me, I'm not really confident in my decision. Yeah, because I think it is a very difficult decision to make once all these players do start coming back into selection, even with Martin potentially coming back as well. Not sure what's going to happen there. I still feel like as if he should make his way through the VFL. But yeah, it's good. It's good to have these headaches.
Yeah, I've gone Fisher for the reason that I actually want Ed Curnow in the guts and at centre clearance. We spoke about this on Friday, Jules, with Walsh, that we both actually think he's going to come off the half forward line anyway, to be honest. For a lot of the time, he will attend stoppages and centre bounces and whatnot, but we saw it last year where he'd come off the half forward flank and then join the stoppage crew after the centre bounce. I think that's Fisher's role at the moment, and with Walsh coming in, that's a straight swap at this point if Walsh plays that role. I think with Akers back in, we've got the pace, or not the pace, but we've got the legs on the outside and the ball use to go forward. And obviously, Ollie Hollands has been doing a fantastic job as well. Fisher, for me, can come in late in the game and inject some speed if we need it, and some slick ball movement from the outside if we do decide that that's a way that we want to go. For me, and it's tough, he had 28 touches, but I have not been impressed with what I've seen with Zach Fisher so far this year. And I think it needs to be a little bit of a wake-up call to him. To say, mate, you've got, like you said, Jules, you've got Cunningham, you've got Martin, you've got Owies that are probably all going to be looking to come back into this side on that half forward spot. You've got some competition coming. you need to hold your spot, and you need to hold it by having a lot more impact on a game than what we've seen so far. And I don't know if that's too harsh on Fish, but 6 or 7 years in the system at this point, your expectations do rise, especially when you're at a club that is looking to make strides towards a flag. So for me, that's why I've gone with Fish. And I think it's just been based on what I was talking about with dominating the centre clearance. Ed Curnow, for me, they were the two that I was tossing up between. I think Ed Curnow can do a lot more damage at centre clearances by throwing his weight around if we need him in there. So that's all.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm still tossing and turning, to be honest with you. I feel like as if even if we do have Ed Curnow is there too many of the same kind of player?
That's all. Yeah, I get it.
Slow, so even myself, I feel like as if it's I don't know. I feel like as if I still need a bit of time to actually think about my decisions. I'm not happy with my decisions that I've made. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and look, I know I've said Fisher, but I don't think he's actually going to be the sub. This is just our opinion on what we think on if we were match committee, what we would do, right? And I just think at this stage, for me, Fisher should be the one, just based on form. I know there's a few people in the comments saying that he's just hit form and he got a couple of coaches' votes. That's fine, but I wouldn't have given him votes on Friday, to be honest, not from what I saw. That's it. Jules, predictions.
Carlton by 21.
This is a tough one for me, because if it's the Carlton that we've seen for the majority of the last 4 weeks, I actually think we're going to get done. Regardless of Walsh and Kennedy coming in, I think this is too much of a danger game for us. Adelaide Oval's against us. Adelaide's against us. The way that, or the inconsistency in the way that we've been able to sort of take it to teams is against us. But then I look at Walsh and Kennedy and I go, fuck, if that midfield's on, we're going to be hard to stop. So I don't know. I really don't. I'm going to say, just for the sake of ending the pod on a good note, I'm going to say Carlton first win at Adelaide Oval in our history, and we'll beat them by 3 points. It'll be another heart attack, to be honest.
Yeah, I just feel like as if this is another hurdle that I reckon with the squad that we have available, and what I know that we're going to be able to produce, it should be a win.
Let's hope. Because if it is, we're 5-1-0 after 6, and we're flying, man. We are genuine. If we win, I'll tell you now, if we beat the Crows on this is where I'm at with this game. If we beat the Crows at Adelaide Oval on Thursday, okay, and I don't care how it gets done, right? It just needs to be a win. If we beat the Crows on Thursday, in my mind, the lid won't be off, all right? I'll keep it on. But in my mind, it'll just tell me that we can beat anyone, anywhere this season. That's where I'm at, because this is a mental hurdle. I'm sorry. I don't care what anyone says, whether people think absolute garbage or whatnot. This is a mental hurdle for us, this game. It's massive. It's huge.
Yeah. I know Adelaide, I know what they can do. My thing is our best can beat anyone. It's just whether we produce. It's just whether we actually want to produce it or not.
100%.
Like you saw it in the third quarter, how we were able to handle ourselves compared to the fourth quarter, and the way we just led our lead. I think it went out to a 46-point lead, something like that. We just saw it diminish in the space of 5-10 minutes. So at the end of the day, it's up to us. There's North Melbourne shouldn't have been in the game, in terms of in the quarter, not the game.
Agree. Jules, we're going to be at the Great Northern Thursday night. Large contingent. There's going to be 100 of us.
Mate, we've got dogs in attendance, everything. Cats, dogs, hermits, whatever you want, just come.
We've generally got 20 people coming, I think, on Thursday in our group. So we'll be at the Great Northern Hotel.
There's a lot of bandwagoners lately in our contingent.
Which I don't mind. Yeah, I'm not one of those people that says I'm not against the bandwagoners, because you know what? I spoke about this with Dan during the week, just to finish off. I remember the days that we used to go to Marvel Stadium in front of 10,000 people and watch us get beat by the likes of Fremantle on one leg or GWS with 16 players, and it was just us. And no one wanted to know about Carlton. Now, if everyone wants to know about Carlton, share. Let's just share in the love. I'm all for it, man. So get around us. Get to the Great Northern Hotel. If you are there on Thursday, come and say hello. Come and have a chat. And until then, Jules, up the fucking baggers, man.
Calm the baggers. See you at the Great Northern.